Hello and welcome to the Classic Car Weekly podcast, the sibling podcast to the popular weekly title. I'm this week's host, Jesse Billington, and we are back after seemingly another 2-week hiatus where just life got in the way. To record another episode, I'm joined by our deputy editor, Chris Hope. How are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. It's called Easter, by the way.
Yeah, Easter holidays, which apparently is something that if you've got kids, you need to do something with them for this sort of like 3-week period. I'm entirely unaware of this.
Yes, I had to empty the house in order to do this podcast, so otherwise I stood absolutely no chance of it going out in any sort of professional sort of state. So,
variety of interruptions coming through, but yeah, we're back. We've obviously had the issues going out perfectly fine, regardless of bank holidays and Easter holidays. It's just been trying to find time to slot in the additional podcast, but we've made a gap. So we'll kick off as we usually do with an Hour Classics catch up. And has there been anything on your front? I'm going to hazard a guess at no.
I refer you back to my previous answer. It's called Easter. No, there hasn't. I think certainly in the next couple of weeks, things should quieten down a little bit. And I think if I'm going to achieve anything, it's going to be in the next sort of 2 weeks or so. So I'm going to find some time to go and check things over. Make sure it starts, get all of that sort of thing done, because now I'm concerned that because it has been stood for so long, intentionally or otherwise, there might be things that need looking into before I go back to what was originally on the checklist. So, yeah, watch this space, I think is kind of the gist of it.
See how it goes. I mean, importantly, on the Hour Classics front, one of your old classics is up for sale, isn't it?
Oh, I know. So yeah, I bought my Mini. Well, we're getting up for 2 years ago now. But before that, I had a TR7. It was a lovely machine. It wouldn't fit in the garage that I now have at the what is my new place sort of thing. So when we decided to move house and we'd sort of put an offer on this place, it became abundantly clear I didn't want my TR7 to be outside. So I had to part ways with it, unfortunately. But yeah, I'll be interested to see how that goes. So that's H&H's upcoming auction, I believe, in Duxford. Is it 29th of April? It's a Sunday, I think. So
should have checked that bit, but yes, yeah, it'll be coming up. I think it does get a mention in an upcoming issue as well. So yeah,
it's interestingly described as having been restored. However, looking at the photos, I'm not seeing much by the way of bodywork restoration work. That might be because the photos were taken in inclement conditions, and that the rain might be hiding some of the work that's been done. I mean, I recognised a little bit of flaking paint on the one of the pop-up headlamps that I very much remember from my time in ownership, sort of thing. So yeah, be interesting to see and what's happened in the interim, sort of thing. So, but yeah, 2-litre fixed head with a Webasto roof. I loved it. It offered the best of both worlds in terms of open air, fresh air motoring whilst still having a hard top. Yeah, I still think that it works well in black with the gold sort of decals and things, aping sort of the Lotus JPS livery. But I don't know about you. You're a fellow sort of 70s BL owner, and I think that you either go one of two ways with sort of rubber bumpers. You either try and blend them in as per the black TR7, or you go for a really massively sort of vibrant color and sort of work on the contrast and make it part of it. So
I think the TR7, your TR7, I really like the look of it in that sort of the dark colors with the gold highlights on it. Just works. There's something about it that really ties the design of it together. But yeah, 29th of April sale through H&H, and it's at Pavilion Gardens, Buxton, Derbyshire. Can you remember the estimate that they put on the car?
they want 8 to 10 for it.
Yeah, which
is,
bold.
I that's not what I paid for it. That's not what I sold it for. However, it's been 2 years, sort of thing, and I've long been of the view that TR7s have been undervalued, sort of thing. So it'll be nice to see that if it does achieve those sort of figures, it means that I had a good one, I think, is kind of the gist of it. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see, won't we?
The description reads as first registered in April 1980 and recently subject to a comprehensive restoration.
Yes. It was restored. It has been restored. I believe it was. I bought it from Rob Sport in Hertfordshire.
Hmm.
And yeah, they had some history for the car, indicating that it had been the subject of a restoration in the 90s, backed up by sort of, printed out photos and things like that. Whether they're classing that as the recent resto, I'm not sure. But yeah, and I mean, obviously, with my time with it, I did a few bits and pieces, stiffened up the suspension, added an anti-dive kit. Because just the way that the engine is positioned, brake hard, and the nose tends sort of like really sort of dip forward. So there was it was what Rob Sport recommended be fitted just to sort of stop that from happening. And there, yeah, I had a go with points and condensers. Very quickly realized it wasn't for me, so I converted it to electronic ignition. Yeah, I just tried to make it as usable as I could, and it is a usable car. 70 mile an hour on the motorways is definitely achievable with it being a 5-speeder. I've had plenty of people say that if you're looking for it to be true sports car qualities, go for the 4-speeder. You get that stronger acceleration and where you need it, sort of thing. But the roads where I'm based and the roads I need it for, that fifth gear was more important to me, sort of thing. So yeah, I think it's a fantastic car, sort of thing. I just didn't have room for it anymore, and a growing family as well just meant that it wasn't getting used either. So I got something with 4 seats in the hopes that I would use it more. Look how that's played out.
Hmm. Did it have the fog lamps and rear wing when you had it?
Yeah,
Or yeah.
yeah. So it's a limited edition, but not especially well publicized. So I'm not surprised it's been mentioned in the listings, but it's something called a premium. So the
Hmm.
majority of the TR7 premiums came in black. There was a few that came in red, and they came with the double bulge bonnet. That is normally fitted to the V8s. It's got the fog lamps, and it's also got the rear spoiler on the rear deck. Which again I really liked. Some people like the abruptness of the rear styling, but I think it needs something, and I think that spoiler just adds something just to sort of so when you look at it as a whole, it looks a bit more complete. So yeah, I mean, beyond that, there wasn't much else, sort of thing. I think a lot of people have sort of told me that uncharitably that it was a Friday afternoon special. We had these bits left over. Let's just chuck it at them, and then hopefully we can call it a limited edition, sort of thing. So, but no, if you want to join the TR7, the TR Drivers Club, or talk to one that they're particularly knowledgeable on the subject matter of TR7 premiums. And yeah, I think there was only, as I say, about 400 made, the vast majority in black, the vast majority with those silver wheels as well. But I think you could get them in gold wheels as well, just to sort of tie it into the decals that are fitted. So yeah, it's a nice car. I had my fun with it. I mean, there's loads of people that say, I want to hold onto it forever and things like that. I think it's different for you and I because we sort of like drive lots of different cars, and I think that probably spurs us on to maybe not hold on to things for too long. We don't get too fixated, sort of thing. I don't know. I'm maybe speaking on your behalf here, sort of thing. But I do like to have something different every now and again. I think yeah, I'm going to have my fun with the Mini over the next few years, and then I can well see that sort of changing to something else.
Yeah, see how it goes. It's yeah. I like the idea of having fun with those different cars. The problem is I'm terrible at getting rid of things. So I'm a bit
Well,
like
yes,
like
yeah.
my dad and my granddad. I'm more of a sort of automotive hoarder
Well,
than anything else.
your issue is that you have the space and the means to store cars anyway. So that what you
Yeah.
probably end up doing is buying another one rather than buying trading it in for something else. I
Yeah.
don't really have that luxury, sort of thing. So
Yeah, I've got the advantage of simply a large workshop that I can just sort of keep packing cars into. And yeah, I was in there doing the Jimny last night, doing quick oil and filter change on it. We'll get to that in a minute. And I sort of stood there going, we've got a Riley drop head there, there's an MG TD there, there's my MG, which is now in pieces here, the Jimny and the Mustang. I'm sort of like, this is slowly just becoming the shed of forgotten Billington dreams, really, of just sort of things we're currently halfway through fixing and putting back together. But it's yeah,
you're young enough that doesn't matter.
yeah.
There's I've got friends who have had that dawn of realization now that they're coming up on 40, and with 6 projects on the go, they probably need to rationalize.
Mm.
So
Well, sort of the flip side of it is trying to buy a house that's got a garage on a staff writer salary is impossible, frankly.
mhm.
Yeah, looking at sort of different areas, my girlfriend goes, "Look at this one," and I go, "But where do I put all my stuff?" I currently have sort of like one side of the workshop with workbenches and shelving units full of sort of parts and jugs of oil and all my tools, my toolboxes, and I'm like, but I need somewhere to put this, otherwise I can't drive 2.5 hours to go and see my car. And so yeah, it does have its own hurdles. But yeah, talking
I
of
think the
my
Jimny is
cars,
going to be used as a support vehicle. I think.
yeah, yeah, it's very much used as a two-seater most of the time anyway. So there could be a point where essentially I just remove the rear seats and turn it into a mobile workshop to
Just get a
support the
van. Yeah,
MG. Yeah,
yeah.
essentially like the new LCV ones. But I mean, the Jimny's been pressed into a lot of service recently. I'm halfway through writing an hour classics on it. It was essentially did almost a lap of the country a couple of weeks back during the Three Peaks Challenge. So that we did really well at that. It would have been better had I not had to replace the handbrake cables on the Sunday before. So I thought I was being really well prepared. I thought, oh, I know its MOT is coming up. I'll submit it for its MOT. Should be able to get it through that, no problem. Then I've got a fresh ticket on it. Don't have to worry for the Three Peaks. Completely forgetting that at its last MOT, they flagged that the handbrake was at its full adjustment and just passing the test. So yeah, by this point, the handbrake cables had stretched out even more. It was no longer passing that test, as that was a quick sort of online shopping trip, £100 for a set of cables, able to fit those in an afternoon. That wasn't too tricky, all things considered. Relatively straightforward process on the Sunday after the NEC. Retested, passed it, and then yeah, set off. Would have been Wednesday morning, I think I did it. Was drive up to my mates in Oswestry, pick up him and another friend, pack the car full of just kit, and then bombed it up to Fort William to do Ben Nevis. And the actual challenges were pretty good fun. We enjoyed doing the mountains. We've all largely done all three before, but it was yeah halfway up snow Ben Nevis when we're sort of getting to waist deep snow, and we're thinking this is getting to be a bit silly. Visibility's less than 25 meters.
Yeah, yeah,
Sort of plow on, get within. I think we got within about 200 meters of the summit according to GPS, and we
yeah.
were like, "There's it's
That's good enough.
that's good enough. We'll call it quits here. Turn around, go back to the bottom, back in the car, and then out of Fort William down to the Lake District. We've got a brilliant shot of the car parked up near Westwater at the base of Scarfell. So we essentially also realised that it was going to absolutely kill us trying to do it in 24 hours. So we
Yeah,
said, why don't we actually try and enjoy the experience and do one each day for 3 days in a row? It's
yeah,
still physically quite tiring and a lot of driving to do and a lot of walking, but just meant we could actually enjoy some of the locations we visited a bit more. So hostel overnight, park up, nice group shot next to Westwater, do Scarfell, absolutely glorious. First time I've done Scarfell, got to the top and been able to see anything, which was quite a pleasant change. Back down, back into the car, down to Oswestry, and then we drove out and did Snowdon the next day, which was also great right until we got to the summit. And it was 40-mile-an-hour wind with hail. So yeah, that stings when it gets you in the face.
hmm
That was not good fun. So we did nice sort of tricky route up and then took what's called the Llanberis path back down, which runs alongside the railway that goes all the way down mostly, which is clearly the inspiration for the railway that goes up the mountainside in the railway series by the Reverend Audrey. If you look at any of the photo illustrations in the original books and look at the pictures of the Llanberis Railway, you go, this is just the same thing. He copied it. I can't remember what the railway's called in the book series, but anyway. So no, the Jimny held up really well to that actually. My mates did a bit of the driving on the first leg up when it was the really long slog from Wales all the way to Scotland, and yeah, they were quite pleased with how the car sort of drives and handles. It's weird to get sort of someone else's opinion on your car, especially when you're
yes,
sitting in the passenger seat.
yeah, yeah,
It's yeah, it was just it put up well to the challenge and just sort of thrummed its way all the way up there. It's a bit cramped in the back, so we took turns sitting in the back over time, so no one got sort of too little blood circulation to their toes. But yeah, again, if you want a completely practical classic that you can just sort of at the drop of a hat go on a massive adventure with, it's pretty much up there as an option. It did about 33 to the gallon the entire way round, which
good.
considering the rocketing fuel prices and the fact that we were properly laden down with people and things, not the worst, but it does need properly airing out as well. I've sort of tried to give it a chance to blow out a few days in a row because it just smells a bit fetid after 3 days of being full of like wet man and hiking gear. So it's
Yeah,
yeah, it's got a distinct aroma. And then got back and immediately decided to tackle the suspension on the MG, which I've been sort of building up to for ages, and thought I will get it done. overhaul it through the spring. It'll be ready for summer, maybe even get it done for drive it day, which is usually my sort of my famous foil now 3 years in a row is trying to get the MG ready for drive it day and always missing. Um, so yeah, phoned up my mate at Moss Rimmer, put together a giant order of parts. I've got one shock absorber still to arrive because weirdly the left-hand side or passenger side ones, they seem to get through them a lot quicker than they do right-hand side ones. I think it's due to the prevalence of potholes blowing out shocks.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so got all the parts together, all the fresh bushes, got slightly uprated bushes again, just to try and tie the front end down a bit more. My friend has sold me a set of lowered springs from his old Austin A30 project. So yeah, got all the parts together, sit down with my mate to sort of strip out the front end, roll bar off, getting all the sort of old trunnions out because we've got very worn trunnions on one side. And we're looking at the way the trunnion mounts to the wishbone, and essentially you've got a pin that runs through the front edge of the wishbone, and the pin is very slack in the wishbone. So we're like, okay, that's not good. That's worn out the actual front end of the wishbone. So we're like, okay, new wishbones onto the shopping list. And then we get the wishbones out. Notice on the driver's side at the rear mount for the wishbone, there is a lovely crack running all the way through the wishbone mount. So we're like, oh no, that's going to need welding. So hopefully arriving sometime in the next 40 minutes, probably going to interrupt this podcast, is a fresh wishbone mount for the driver's side. We're going to essentially trim out the section we need, trim out the dead section on the car. Otherwise, you have to strip out pretty much everything from the car. It's a
Right.
complete engine out job. You're stripping off sort of all sorts of bits and pieces so you can get to it and weld the entire thing because you need to get to not just the chassis leg but also the cross member that runs through it and all sorts. So
Right.
we're essentially going to do the smallest possible work to it so we can do it all with as much in situ as possible. We figured while we're bringing the welder out, we might as well finally tackle the mangled chassis leg at the front, which had the front end of it ripped off by my dad when we recovered it 2 years ago after I hydrolocked the engine.
Yes.
So
I'm going to say, I'm going to blame anybody here.
it's me. Yeah. So I've ordered a new chassis end rail as well. So we're going to weld that on, refit a towing eye to it, and I'm probably going to leave the lip slightly mangled and essentially just try and sort of beat it straight and then just quickly sort of coach paint it just to bring it back a bit more.
Yeah.
But that means at the moment we've got bonnet off, we've got wings off, and we've got the front bumper off as well. And I'm sort of sat in that tricky position that a lot of rubber bumper owners will have been in, where they've taken the bumper off, held about 23 kilos in their hands and gone, why am I going to add ballast back into my car? I was sort of
Yep.
going, oh, I could take the bumpers off, which would save me about 40 kilos across the length of the car. But then I've got to order the panels that fill in the gaps and the new sort of wings and bits and bumper overriders. And then I've got to get those prepped and painted and welded in. And
Just
that's a huge
stick them back
cost.
on. Stick them back
Yeah.
on
And I'm like, I
for
can see
another
that
day.
quickly spiraling out of control and then never using the car until October because that's what I
Yes.
went through last year. So I'm like, okay, I want to use it through summer. I've already done nearly 300 miles with the roof down on that car this year
Yes.
alone. So I'm
Yeah. You know,
tempted
you've
to.
been well.
So yeah, the car's currently as stripped down as it needs to be. The parts are going to arrive in the next 40 minutes, and hopefully next week we'll get them at least welded on, and then we can start rebuilding the suspension. I've got again fresh shocks, new springs, fresh bushes for the roll bars. Now I've got new wishbones arriving, drop links for the roll bars. So it should tighten up the entirety of the front end really, and leave the back end a bit slack and springy, so that I'll get some sort of sideways action out of it. Will it be ready for Drive It Day? Almost certainly no. Will it be ready for Retro Rides Weekend down at Goodwood? Hopefully.
Good.
It's yeah, so I'll be able to take it down there, hopefully get it booked in to do the auto solo and the sort of auto crossing down there. I probably won't do any of the big track sessions on it because those 1500s love to slosh all their oil to one side away from the pickup. And famously, they're good at starving main bearings anyway. The last thing I want to do is encourage it to do that with some high G cornering around Goodwood. So yeah, at least the left right of an auto solo won't be too damaging for it. But yeah, at the moment it's all go. And then serviced the chimney last night, fresh oil and filter, which was quite straightforward actually. But surrounded by the parts of what were once constituted the MG was kind of disheartening. But yeah, it's been flat out for me, and I don't think it's going to let up. As much
No.
as I like to mock the fact that my colleagues have all got children and things to deal with, I seem to have just as much fun trying to coerce all of my cars to work at once. But still, it's good fun. And weirdly though, I haven't seen any 1500 midgets on Twitter at the moment, which is relevant because any listeners who use Twitter might have enjoyed the recent Japanification of Twitter, and essentially the change in the algorithm that not only auto translates posts but then pushes them to you if it thinks you might like them. So for me, obviously, my Twitter largely feeds me a lot of car content. The new auto translate system has been auto translating a lot of Japanese tweets. I'm going, oh, this is about cars, and then pushing it to my feed and a lot of other people's. And it's unveiled this sort of great love of British classic cars in Japan. And obviously the Mini was sold out there for a long period of time as sort of essentially in the same way that we buy JDM cars, they bought UK domestic market cars because they drive on the same side as us. They just use kilometers an hour. So the Mini was quite a popular car out there, but so it seems there's also things like the Rover Tomcat and the
Yeah.
75, and there's some very tastefully modified examples out there. If you think sort of Japanese car modifying scene style, but applied to the Rover 75, it's a very weird thing. And until you see it, you go, oh, actually, it really works. And there's also love for the vintage Rolls Royce out there. There's some absolutely incredible sort of coach built Rolls Royces floating around still. And obviously they're going through spring, it's Sakura season, you've got all the blossoms sort of coming off the cherry trees.
Yes.
And there's been so many beautiful photographs of British classic car meets in Japan, and you've got all these vintage Rolls Royces, Rovers all over the place, and then it's just surrounded by these lovely sort of pink, rich blossom trees, and you sort of go, it's such a weird scene to look at, but
Yeah.
it's great to get this insight into someone else's car culture.
I think it's like we have daffodils at this time of year, isn't it? So you tend to see sort of loads. I don't know about you, but when I think of like the Goodwood members meeting, I just think of the start finish straight just lined with daffodils sort of thing. So it's that kind of idea.
Yeah, it's just interesting getting a because obviously we go to like a couple of European shows. We'll go to Essen, we'll go to Retromobile and get an insight into what European classic car culture's like. But it's so weird to now sort of suddenly have the lid lifted on a completely different sort of
Yeah.
part of the globe's classic culture. Think I might struggle to convince David that we need to fund me going over there to have a look and investigating it in a bit more detail, but
Hop, skip, and a jump from Australia.
yeah, it's not too far. I mean, I've got Australia on the cards now. I've got it booked in. I've got the flights booked in. So if anyone does want to pitch me some classic car show recommendations for between the 15th of October and the 8th of November, let me know. Drop us a line, get in touch with the podcast, get in touch with me. I'll be in Perth from the 15th of October through to the 27th of October, and then Sydney from the 28th through the 8th. So I'm out there technically for the Rugby League World Cup. But while I'm there, I might as well go and enjoy some cars while I'm at it as well. So,
Very
yeah,
jealous. Very, very jealous.
yeah, recommendations of things to see and do on the car scene, museums, meets, events, just general things to go and have a look at and poke around. I'll be very curious indeed, and no doubt sort of our man in Australia for Classic Car Weekly for about 3.5 weeks, which is something that we'll probably never do again. But while we've got the chance, it'll be quite fun to do some sort of interesting introspection. But anyway, back to more important and regular things. In one of the recent issues, Chris, you were out driving the Rover SD1 and the Ford Granada in a sort
But
of
it
twin
will be,
test.
won't it? It was for the it's in our issue on sale last week, wasn't it? So the 8th of April, the 8th of
Yes.
April. So current issues on sale on the is the 15th of April. So sadly you have missed it if you've not grabbed it. But we can direct you in the comments for the information of where to get back issues. So don't worry about that. So this all stems from the fact that this year marks 50 years of the Rover SD1. We timed it for April because I believe that's when motoring journalists sort of got their first glimpses of the car. And Editor David sort of, was looking through the various sort of back issues of our magazines and within the Bauer stable. He's a very exciting individual who sort of spends his evenings doing those sort of things. And he was very keen that we pair the Rover SD1 against the Mark II Granada. It's not something that he felt has been seen in sort of the classic mags. But when you go back and you look at the autocar road tests and things like that, they always sort of placed the rival had like an element where it looked at the rivals, and always at the top of the list was a Mark II Granada sort of thing. So we were able to, and I believe it was launched the following year, the Mark II Granada sort of thing. So it's really, really interesting sort of cars to compare just from a historical standpoint, because you've got with the Rover this really sort of radical sort of styling, aspirational engine, and a very sort of minimalist, modern interior that's free of this wooden leather sort of thing. It's all very adventurous, and unfortunately for BL, there were issues at the start of production that meant that the car never quite realized its potential. There was various sort of niggles in terms of the quality of what was being produced. So despite sort of winning European Car of the Year award and various other accolades, within a couple of years, it sadly didn't reach its sales potential. Team that against the Granada, and yeah, you had a car here that was by the numbers in the best possible way, perfectly pitched, perfectly marketed, but against the SD1, I hope people don't mind saying it is not that adventurous. I think the issue here is that you had a car that had already been quite successful in the Mark I Granada, and Ford's mantra, from as far as I understand it, is why opt for revolution when you can just go for evolution. It very much just builds on the positives that were there without moving too far away and alienating that market that they'd already sort of set up. And yeah, just there's baffling. So obviously we're looking at a Mark II, but we're not just looking at any Mark II. We're looking at what was the facelifted Mark II that we've got here. The Rover that we drove was a V8S, which was a few years into production. So Rover had weathered this storm of the initial sort of dip in terms of sales as a result of quality, came out the other side of it, and wanted to create a plusher, more luxurious SD1 that might be more suited to sort of American tastes. So they sort of created this V8S, which has the sunroof, has various other sort of additional toys and extras just to make it a more pleasant place to be. And it was available with both auto and manual, but we've actually got a manual that we drove. And yeah, when I drove a P6, a 3000S. I found that very transformative in terms of my understanding the appeal of that car, where you had the V8 and the manual box. I've driven SD1s before. I've driven a one of the smaller sixes, so the 2600. And yeah, I've not driven a V8 before. So to drive one with the manual was very enjoyable indeed, just for that extra engagement. You could quite easily drive that car like an auto. It goes without saying the V8 has plenty of torque. You can drive it very lazily. What the gearbox, the manual gearbox does is just give you that extra sort of driver engagement, so that you can feel like the connection to the car, particularly when you're on back road sort of thing. You feel like you're doing the work rather than the car. And the Ford that we had is, as I mentioned, is a Mark II facelift. And the amazing stat that I found was that Ford spent more money on that facelift of an existing model than Rover spent on the entire production of the SD1, if you don't count into it the bespoke factory that was created for that car sort of thing. So it just shows that sort of the different ways that two manufacturers approach the same sort of flagship executive sort of route sort of thing. So yeah, both splendid in their own ways, but very, very different cars.
Yeah, because I've driven a V8 SD1 before as well, and it was a manual, and it's a really interesting car, and it feels like it would work both as an automatic and as a manual, because in the manual you have, like you said, that control. It's a big, heavy gearbox as well. I think it's the same gearbox they slung in the Range Rover, and it takes a proper sort of confidence shift to get between ratios. But it works. It
It's a
gives it
bit
that
like
sort
an XJS in that it is a GT first, but
Mm.
with very strong sporting pretensions.
Yeah. It gives you that sort of sense of control and this idea of sort of power and presence as you're sort of actually in it, which I think is a really interesting thing that the SD1's sort of able to embody. And again, I love the fact that Rover pushed the boat out with the styling both on the exterior and the interior. You've got that weird sort of pod style dashboard and all the instrument binnacles to it. It was trying to be revolutionary, but possibly overstepped its own sort of capabilities was sort of its
I find
downfall
it
early on.
interesting in that the Ford was created um, with collaboration between both its sort of British and German departments, sort of thing.
Mm.
Whereas the SD1 was born of that sort of what's it, conflict. But it sounds quite dramatic that way. But there were competing designs for what would be the SD1 between Triumph and between Rover, and I just wonder how much of those conditions just are the reason why we ended up with the two cars we did. We have a scenario where the remit is to work together, whereas the other remit is to compete against one another, sort of thing. So I'm not saying one car's bad and one car's another. I just wonder whether the way that they were developed can be and the results that follow can be very much attributed to that sort of process.
Yeah, they're both very interesting products of the cultures of the companies that built them in
Yeah.
sort of British Leyland's sort of refusal to try and sort of draw a line between its marks or its sort of almost encouragement of its marks to
Well,
battle one
if
another.
you're up against somebody, you have to stand out, and
Mm,
you cannot say that the SD1 does not stand out.
no.
So yeah, it's again, I don't want to get into the too much into the the flaws and the potential that didn't go unrealized, sort of thing. If you just look at it at what it is, for what it is, especially today as a classic car, as a hobby car, they stand out. They stand out in the crowd, sort of thing. But then,
Mm,
unfortunately, so do Fords, but particularly Mark II Granadas. But that's not necessarily down to their styling. That's down to their attrition rate and
yeah.
how unusual it is to see them on the roads today, unfortunately.
Also, could you say that Granada enjoyed a bit more sort of presence through sort of television and media as well, which helped sort of keep its name and its nameplate alive when you sort of look
Yeah,
at
I mean, I think that's equally true of the SD1 as well, though. I
true.
think there's the yeah, but I think I think just it's that sort of culture in the late 70s whereby um, the Ford very much catered for that one-upmanship through its trim and spec. So the particular car we have, it's an L. So it's a bottom of the rung, bottom of the ladder sort of spec. However, the owner, who is from the Mark II Granada Drivers Club, they have fitted a 2 litre engine. So I think the L would have originally been fitted with the 2.3.
60. Yeah.
So, but rather than being injected, it's still on carbs. So it proved a really nice sort of foil for the Rover in terms of spec. They were very, very similar cars in terms of how they lined up on paper. Obviously, what I mean by that is obviously there's a big gap between the V8 and the six, but they were the biggest engines you could get for those two respective cars at that time, sort of thing. So, and I didn't feel like the Ford was ever sort of inferior in terms of outright pace, acceleration, sort of thing. They were very different to drive, but I don't think it was that stood out.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Ford sort of a lot of people still love it because it was this car from the Sweeney. It was sort of that sort of popular car at the time a little bit. But yeah, it's just interesting that there's sort of this. They were both aimed at the same part of the market, but both sort of came to those routes through very different means. And I think from your overall point, it definitely seems like it shines through in the way the cars sort of drive and the way that they feel from when you're behind the wheel. Is these are two cars made by two very differently sort of functioning manufacturers, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very interesting one. Obviously, that was in the previous issue. Wednesday 15th, we released our latest issue, which has got a feature on the E-Type 2 Plus 2, I think I'm correct in saying.
Yeah, so it's a buyer's guide, and the 2+2, we're looking at both the Series 1 2+2s because they came out towards the end of Series 1 production, but also sort of the Series 2. The 2+2 remains the affordable E-Type. And it's surprising to me just to what extent, you can easily be fooled into thinking that are ruinously expensive cars. When you see sort of six-figure sums that some of the early E-types achieve, and even sort of the Series 3 V12s are onto that route now. It is possible to get a plus two for something closer to 25 to 30. It's not an insignificant amount of money, but it is a vastly smaller sum than what you would expect from sort of the 50, 75, maybe even £100,000 plus for some E-types. And it puts you behind the wheel of an E-type. And yeah, it's something we wanted to look at. And we did so because it's obviously it's 60 years since the Plus 2 originally released. So we thought that was the perfect excuse to sort of revisit it, offer some buying tips, but also really push that market angle that it's a car that people should think about if they thought it was out of reach.
And equally, it's 65 years of the E-Type as it stands as well. And I think that's what's being celebrated at members' meeting this weekend. So I'm off there Saturday and Sunday to get some coverage together. And they've got a new race this year called the Prothero Cup, which celebrates 65 years of that sort of first iteration of the E-Type. And it's named for famous sort of privateer E-Type racer. I can't remember his first name. I think it was something Prothero. He used to race in sort of all the famous cut liver or cut licensed E-types. So it was CUT and then usually a number after them. I think Cut 7 is one of the most famous ones still on the
I
circuit.
mean, no, I'm not being disparaging of the members meeting in the slightest, but I think it's very interesting where there is a ready-made 60th anniversary with because 10s, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s tends to be the bread and butter of anniversary celebrations. To go with a 65, it just shows out what an underrated gem the Plus 2 is. It's right there, and I imagine it'll be an afterthought if it's something that's considered at all. So.
Also, don't they had a particularly huge racing pedigree though, the Plus
Well,
twos.
yeah,
So
there's that as
yeah,
well, sort of thing.
yeah.
But
So
yeah, I mean, yeah, I think I'm fair to say that if it is that the any sort of E-type anniversary is covered, any sort of event in Britain, then it will be the one that you described rather than the one that I described that will get top billing.
yeah, there is just sort of that natural, sort of predetermined, almost sort of love for the sort of early series ones, for their purity of design and everything. But that doesn't mean that you can't love and shouldn't love and enjoy and inspect sort of a later iteration of it. But yeah, celebrating sort of the 65 years of the first iteration of the E-Type, Dick Prothero Cup. So he was famous for the Cut 7 most notably, and there'll be a couple of other ones as well joining the group. We've also got celebrations of 50 years of James Hunt, so 1976 Formula
Okay.
One world champion. So we've got a gathering of his racing cars and cars he would have raced against as well on the Formula One grid, doing a series of sort of celebration laps and parades, as well as 50 years as well of Barry Sheene, a fellow sort of British racing icon, but obviously on two wheels as well. And again, we've got a gathering of all of his sort of bikes from across his era, bikes that his competitors would have raced as coming together. The members meeting has alongside it the Halewood and Sheen trophies, regardless. So there's going to be a lot of really interesting sort of two-stroke Yamahas, Suzuki's bikes from that period. So I personally am looking forward to that, and they've launched a T-shirt to go with it that I will be getting. It's the iconic moment of Barry Sheene with two fingers raised in a salute while sort of riding away from the camera, and it's absolutely perfect. So I'll be picking that up across the weekend.
There'll be SD ones as well. There's normally
there's SD ones
later
heading
touring
up.
cars.
Yes, so we've got Win Percy is going to be the sub 2.8 litre touring car series, and then it's the Gordon Spice Trophy for anything over 2.8. So
That's the one to watch.
Yeah, that's the one to watch. That's your 3 litre Capris. You've got your SD1s in there, your Boss 302 Mustangs, E28 Camaros. That's always going to absolute sort of door banger, and yeah, plenty to look forward to in that as well. So definitely, yes, there's a couple of SD1s in there. Usually, I think there's the Sanyo Music Centre liveried one that's usually a commonplace one. I think there's one that's also Marlborough liveried that's often on the same scene. So there'll be a good few SD1s to enjoy. And obviously tickets for this are a bit sort of like hen's teeth. You've got to be part of the exclusive club to get them, but it is all streamed online as well. So you'll be able to watch all the proceedings through the Goodwood Road Racing Club YouTube channel, and you'll be able to watch the whole thing there, including the celebrations, and better still, you'll get the commentary that goes with it. They'll have sort of famous names and faces talking through them, people that will have raced against the likes of James Hunt and Barry Sheene. So I know that we've got Steve Parish, if you're into your bikes. He was obviously, I think he was a teammate at one point as well of Barry Sheene talking through it. So there'll be plenty of sort of relatively reasonable sort of names there to sort of add history and context to bits and pieces as we go. So lots to look forward to in that sense. And obviously, weekend after that, we have Drive It Day, which is one of the biggest weekends of the year on the classic calendar. We have in the issue coming a preview of what to expect, I think, or is that in this week's issue? I've lost track of which issue we're into.
It's working
Um,
ahead that we do does rather muddy the waters, doesn't it? So
yeah, I've lost track of
Sunday, 29th of April is the date for the diary either way, isn't it? So
Yes, yeah. So I think I've got it. It will be in the 22nd of April issue is our Driver Day preview with I think I've got at least 40 things across sort of the 3 pages of Out and About,
yep.
both in like options of where to go. There's bits and pieces through the listings as well. Brooklands, weirdly enough, came through very late with their booking, hence the reason why it doesn't feature in that spread. But they have
Yep.
also got a event on the 20, what did we say? It was the 29th, 26th even. So yeah, a lot to enjoy.
Classic Car
I've got-
Weekly supports an event with Old Transport Museum. So there will be a gathering of cars there. Definitely worth going along to that. And yeah, Drive It Day is about doing what you want to do. By all means, go to an event. But the important thing is just to be seen out and about with your classic. So even if, like me, you're unsure whether your car is going to be moving it under its own steam, just take it, if it's a nice day, take it out of the garage and just park it on the driveway so that people can see. The whole point of it is just to raise awareness of us as a hobby so that when the Federation of British Historic Vehicle Clubs goes to lawmakers, we're just that bit more prevalent, we're that bit more sort of visible as a community, and we're not getting forgotten. So
yeah.
I mean, also worth mentioning that if you do go to the FBHVC's website, you can order a Drive It Day plaque, and all funds that are used for that, I believe, are for Childline. Is their preferred
NSPC's and Childline, yeah.
So obviously, yeah, not only do you get a nice plaque that you can put on your car for the day, which, to a point explains why you're out and about, you're also doing something for really, really sort of well-deserving charities.
Yeah, so I think it's about 15 pound a go for a plaque, and obviously all the funds from that do go to charity. It's just a great way of sort of supporting the day. You've already mentioned Withall, we've got someone heading along to that. I think David is going to be up at Dalemain doing the event up there. I think we've got James Sadlier down at Brooklands covering the event there, and I'm going to be at the Bicester Scramble covering bits and pieces from there as well. So if you see us, sort of give us a wave if you're out in your classic. We're sort of covering all the people who are out in their classics across the weekend. And I think in a coming issue, we will have the email address for sending in your images of you out with your classic on Drive It Day as well. So we should have
send us your photos, please do.
Yeah. I'll put the email.
We'll include as many of them. So we are at a number of events. We do always, every year, include space pagination for including the best of the photos that we receive from our readers. So please do send in. It just means that from our own selfish perspective, we get that much more sort of spread across the UK. But yeah, I mean, if you're outside of the UK, then that's absolutely fine as well. I don't think we've had any overseas Drive It Dayers, but yeah, that'd be great to see if you want to do that.
I know. Well, the podcast does have a good handful of international listeners. So if you're out and about on the 29th with your classic, let us know where you've been.
And
take photos, send it to us.
And editorial at classiccarweekly.co.uk.
We'll have the email address in the description of the podcast as well. So I think
I've just said it. Editorial at classiccarweekly.co.uk.
Put it in writing as well.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Or can always be too secure. Anyway, that's pretty much all we've got time for. We've sort of covered almost 3 issues worth of content there, looking back onto and looking ahead on one to hopefully catch up on a few bits and pieces.
Easter's gone now, so we have no excuses for not sticking to a weekly schedule.
Yes, yeah, there's possibly going to be onus on us sticking to a weekly schedule moving forwards, but that's something else to be discussed at another point in time. Anyway, in the meantime, obviously, remember to like, comment, subscribe on all those sort of podcasty bits, and of course, subscribe to Classic Car Weekly to never miss an issue. We'll be back next week, as I said, with a preview of Drive It Day and all the incredible events to get to. What else have we got features-wise in that issue? Can you remember?
What will it be? April 22nd?
Yes.
Yes. Three Graces at 70.
Ooh.
So again, I was at Withall Transport Museum, and they held a event that not only celebrated that Mark II generation of Zodiac, Console, and Zephyr, they also had some Mark IV Zephyrs along and Zodiacs along, because I believe they're celebrating, I'm going to get this wrong now, it's either 60 or 50. But yes, there was a major milestone anniversary for them as well. And it'll be 60, won't it? It must be.
If they're
Anyway,
1960s cars, yeah, 60.
yeah, there must be. So, yeah, and there was plenty of Vauxhalls along as well, which I found really interesting. Just in terms of
Recommended.
having sort of the foils to the rivals, the major rivals from Luton along as well, and it was all really very pally. I was surprised at the number of sort of these owners of Mark IIs that also own a Velox or
Yeah,
a
Cresta.
Cresta or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite. I didn't realize that you do both apparently. You just, if you're a fan of tail fins, you're a fan of tail fins, regardless of whether it came from Dagenham or Luton. So yeah, but no, I'm getting off topic. The feature looks at three amazing cars and the ownership stories behind them. I'm really pleased with this one. It includes some incredibly historical, significant cars. Definitely worth picking up and having a look.
Yeah, so plenty to enjoy in the next issue. And of course, we'll be back next week following members' meeting. So I'll have some stories from behind the scenes there as well as live coverage that I'll put together over Saturday, Sunday. That'll all be on shop shelves on the 22nd of April, hopefully with another issue of the podcast to boot as well. Chris, thank you very much for joining me this morning.
Loved it. Thank you.
And we'll be back next week with another issue of Classic Car Weekly.